Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. Now today I'm going to show you how to make this a beautiful blanket. Take a look at this. This is absolutely beautiful. It's really easy. As always, I try and do blankets that are quick and easy. Most of them are anyway. And look at this stitch. It is such a pretty stitch as well. Now you can do this all one colour if you like, but I like it done with this grey and pink. Grey, dark grey and even light grey really make light colours pop when you see them together. So it's a very underestimated colour in wool and yarn, so it is, because it's so versatile and it's beautiful with pink. This blanket is my finished size blanket. It's 27 inches long from the top. The top's just plain and I just put, the top's plain and I put my little bow in the corner and I ran my ribbon around. It's 27 inches long up and down the way, and it's 25 inches that way, including the border, and it's so pretty. Look at that. I'll show you the back. The back's not too bad. It's not a reversible. It's not a reversible blanket, but that's the back of it, and this is the front. Now I have done 54 rows. Do not think you're going to be there forever doing 54 rows. You're not. This is really quick. Each section has 4 rows in it. Now I didn't loop when I did the pink. When I did the grey and then I stopped and used the pink, I didn't just loop it up. I cut the yarn and I stitched it in. I stitched my edges in and then I started with my grey and then I changed back to pink. And each time I just cut the yarn and I've stitched it in. Now remember one thing as well, if you sell your blankets and you put a big long length of ribbon in, please put a few stitches in underneath here so you can't see it. Put a few stitches in to hold it. You don't want a young child to grab that and pull it all out, and it can become a danger. Make sure it's certain lengths. I've got mine every 6 inches. I've got a few stitches in, so you can't pull that out because it's stitched under here, so you can't pull it out into a big length. Now I've just put some ribbon around it and a bow. I'll show you how to do the stitch. I'm going to do a small sample, and the edge, all the edges is a 1 row of a UK double crochet all the way around. Just pick up 4 stitches between your sections, 4 double crochets between your sections, 1 whole row of double crochet, 1 whole row of a treble crochet so that my ribbon fits in, then 1 more row of a double crochet. If you're in the USA or another country, I went right around my blanket with a single crochet. I picked up 4 stitches in each of the coloured segments, 4 single crochets. I went all the way around my blanket. Then I did 1 full row of a double crochet. That's in the USA and other countries. This treble in the UK is called a double crochet. I did 1 row of that and then I did 1 more row of single crochet all around the edge. And the stitch for the USA, I guess it'll be the same. It's a cluster stitch. It's just I don't know what else to call it. It's just all clustered, so many stitches, 4 stitches all clustered together. And I'm going to show you how to make this absolutely super beautiful, easy, really easy, this really pretty little blanket. So what I'm going to do to show you this stitch, I'm using this Red Heart Soft Baby Steps in a lemon, and I've got a grey as well. Now, I don't know if the grey will show up very well, but I'm going to show you how to do the stitch. It doesn't matter what colour of yarn you're using this stitch for. You can do 2 rows and then change the colour of your yarn if you want. You can do 4 like I did and then change to grey, or you can just do your blanket all the one colour with this lovely little cluster stitch. It's up to you. So I'm going to I'll pop my yarn up there. Your stitch count is in, do your chain in an even number of stitches. If you leave a long enough tail, if you don't have enough stitches, you can add 1 or 2. If you've got too many, you can just pick one out. So I leave quite a little bit of a tail. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just do my chain in an even number of stitches. Do it quite loose, don't do it too slack. And for this I'm using a UK 5mm hook. Now this hook, people are saying, what the heck are you using? This is called an Addy Swing Max. Now what I've got for comparison, I've got the normal Addy Swing here. It's a 5 as well. I got a gift of a 4.5 size hook like this. And I think if you have any problems with your hands, like I do, I have arthritis and you can see it in my knuckles all swell up and they just stay swollen and it will just eventually get worse. But never mind that, we're still going to continue with this. Look at the difference in the size of the hook, the length of the hook rather. They're in the same place there. This is an Addy Swing. This is a Addy Swing Max. Now I am going to recommend that you get the max size. If you're using the normal one and you're using a thick yarn, it's quite compact here to use. They're good hooks, they're brilliant hooks, they're nice and soft. Now what they're made of, a combination of silicone that's soft and a harder plastic. The hook is set into the top. Don't try and pull these out to make them longer, it doesn't work. Someone told me to pull it out, but that metal shaft only goes to here. And if you pull it too far out, then I just couldn't manage to get it out at all. It's totally solid in there. You're better just to pay the few pence extra and get this max size one. Now, the shaft, the handles are the same size. It's the shaft of the hook that's longer on the max. And I would recommend this one. This one, your stitches feel a little bit too cramped when you're working. But the shape is, look at that, your hand just fits into that shape. But anyway, that's enough about these hooks. So you're going to do your chain. Don't do it too tight. So I think that's enough just to show you how to do this stitch. Now what we're going to do is we're going to be using a UK double crochet. It's clusters with a double crochet. If you're in the USA, this is a single crochet. Now what you're going to do is you're going to go into the second loop in your chain. So just take your hook and go through that second stitch and pull a stitch through. We're going to do a double crochet to start with. We're going to start and finish with a double crochet. So what you're going to do is into the same stitch that you've just done that one, put your hook in and pull a stitch through. Go to the next chain, the next link in your chain and pull a stitch through, and then the same into the next stitch. 2 off a chain and 1, so we've got 4 loops. Put your yarn over and pull through all of those loops and chain 1. Now into the same stitch that you've just used into that same stitch here, go in and make another stitch. Use the next link in your chain and pull through, so you've got 3 loops. Use the next link and pull through, so you've got 4 loops. Yarn over and come through all those 4 loops and chain 1. You've got to remember and chain 1. And what you're making is these little clusters. So we're going to go back into that same stitch that you did your last one on, down in there. Use that same space and make a stitch, and then use 2 from your chain. So that's 1 loop and the next stitch in your chain. Yarn over, pull through all your stitches, chain 1. Keep it loose. So into the same stitch that you've just used with that last one, make a stitch. Then use the next chain, make a stitch, and the next chain and make a stitch. Yarn over and come through all of those loops and chain 1. And again, so we're going again into that same stitch that we've just used and pull through, and then use a link in the chain and then your next stitch. Pull through all of those, chain 1 and go into that same stitch that you did that last one on. We're using this stitch twice, so make a loop and then use your next stitch in your chain to make a loop and the next stitch and make a loop. Yarn over, pull through all those loops and chain 1 into the same stitch that you've just used. Make a loop into the next stitch in the chain, make a loop, and the next stitch in the chain and make a loop. Yarn over and pull through all the loops and chain 1. You've got to remember and chain 1. So what you're doing is you're creating a stitch from the one you've already used and then using 2 on your chain. So into the stitch that you've used already, make a loop, into the next stitch in your chain, make a loop, and the next stitch and make a loop. Yarn over and pull through and chain 1. So I've only got 3 stitches left and I need 4. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put my hook in to that last stitch there, use my tail end and make another stitch and pull through. So I've made myself another stitch on the end. So a lot of the time I don't do a stitch count anymore. I just use the tail end to make extra stitches if I need them. If I've got too many, I can always pick them out. So we're going into that stitch again and pull through. So that was the same stitch that we used. Then into the next stitch, pull a loop through, into the next stitch, pull a loop through. I've got 1 stitch left there. Yarn over, pull through all of those loops and chain 1. So into my last stitch, I'm going to do a double crochet. Just push my hook through and I'm going to finish with a double crochet on the end. Chain 1 and turn. So you're going to start with a double crochet and you're going to finish with a double crochet. So right into that very first space, we'll do our double crochet. So what we're going to do now is, into the same space, we're going to create a stitch. So pull a stitch through into the top of the cluster. There's your stitch there. Go through the stitch and pull through. You've got 3 loops. Now into the space. Every space in between our cluster, we're going to use it twice. So we're going to use the space twice, and then the top stitch of the cluster. Then the space will use that twice, and then that stitch, and use that space twice. This is creating the stitches that we're losing when we make the cluster. So into this chain, into the space between the clusters, yarn over, pull through all your loops and chain 1. So we're going into the space again, the same space, creating a stitch. Into the top of your cluster, make your loop, and into the next space and create a stitch. So you've got your 4 loops again. Yarn over, through them all, chain 1. Into the space again, into the top of your cluster, pull a loop through, and into the next space, and pull through all your loops, chain 1. Into the same space, you see where we're using the space twice, into the top of the cluster, that's your cluster there, and then into the space between the clusters. It's a little bit more difficult to explain this stitch. Chain 1. Into the space. Once you've got your first row done, it's easy. Into the space, then into the top of the cluster, create a loop, and into the next space, create a loop, yarn over, through your 4 loops, chain 1. Make sure when you do the chain 1, don't do it too tight. And this is what we're getting, this little set of clusters. So into that space again, into the top of the cluster, into the stitch, in the top of the cluster, pull through, and into the space, pull through. Yarn over through all your loops, chain 1, into the space again, and then into the top of the cluster, pull a loop through, and into the next space, pull a loop through, yarn over through all your loops, and chain 1. Into the same space, make a loop, into the top of the cluster, make a loop, and into that space, make a loop, through all your 4 loops, chain 1. Into the same space again, make a loop, top of the cluster, make a loop, and into the last chain space, into that space in between your clusters. I've been calling it a chain space. So pull through all your 4 loops, chain 1. Now into the top of this little bundle at the end, you're just going to do your double crochet. Just like that. Chain 1 and turn. Into the very bottom of that chain 1, you're going to do a double crochet. Now into the same space where you've done that double crochet, make a loop. So now we're at the top of the next cluster. There's your stitch there. So pull your yarn through to make another loop. That's the top of the cluster. And there's your space in between your clusters. These are the spaces that we're going to be using twice in between each cluster. So into the cluster and make a stitch. You've got 4 loops, yarn over, through them all, chain 1, into that same space again, pull a loop through, into the top of the cluster, pull a loop through, and then into the space, pull a loop through. Yarn over through all your loops, and you're at your last one, so you're just going to do a double crochet into that last stitch that's there. Chain one and turn, double crochet into the very first space there. Use the space again to create a loop. You're going to use the stitch from the top of your cluster to make your next loop, and then into the space for your fourth loop. Yarn over through them all, chain one, and into your loop again. And that is what you're going to repeat. You're going to repeat that for as many rows as you want, and then into your last stitch for your double crochet. And that is what you get. You get that. Now what I did next was, where's my scissors? I just cut my yarn, leave enough for you to stitch in. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to just backtrack there. Keep your 2 stitches on before you do your double crochet. So I've got my grey, hopefully you'll still see that. Just pull your grey through to finish the stitch. You're going to do your chain one, just tighten that up, and turn, and then you're going to do your double crochet into that space, that very first space. Do your first double crochet. You can tighten your threads up. Now get a needle and stitch that in just down the side. So you're going to stitch your edges in. So right into that same space you're going to create a loop. Then into the stitch above your cluster, there it's there, to create your next loop, and then into that space to make your fourth loop, and come through all your loops and chain one, and that's you starting your next colour. You still get your straight edge with you doing your double crochet on the end of each row at the beginning and end. So into that space again to make a loop. The top of your cluster, make a loop, and your next stitch is where your space is, and make a loop. Yarn over, pull through, chain one, and into the space again, same space. The next stitch is the top of your cluster, and the next stitch is your space again, till you've got 4. Chain one, space, cluster, space, pull through, chain one, same space, top of your cluster, and the same space. Yarn over, chain one, and that is what you're going to do for your next 4 rows, and then you'll change your colour again if you want to. You don't have to. You can just keep it all the same colour. Top of the chain, chain one, so into the same space, top of the cluster, into my last space, chain one, and then do a UK double crochet. If you're in the USA, then that's a single crochet. Chain one and turn, and you're going right into that first space to do another double crochet. in there again to make a loop, the same stitch, the top of your cluster, and then into the next space. And that is how you make your little clusters. So I've got my 4 yellow, I'll do 4 grey and more yellow, and that's what I did. You don't need to change the colour. You can do 2 rows and then change your colour. It's up to you. Use your imagination for this, but just remember to use that space twice. You can clearly see here. Use the space twice to make your stitch, because that's what creates the stitch that you lose when you make your cluster. So give it a try. Give this a little try. It is easy once you get it into your head. And remember, you do your UK double crochet at the end and one at the beginning. And if you're in the USA, that's a single crochet. You do one at the beginning and one at the end. So that is how I finish my blanket. Now, when I did my little sample of just those few rows, we did 1 row of a UK double crochet, 1 row of a UK treble crochet, and then one that's to hold the ribbon, and then 1 more row of a UK double crochet. If you're in the USA or another country, we finished the square with 1 row of single crochet all the way around, 1 row of double crochet that holds the ribbon, and 1 more row of single crochet all the way around, and this is what you get. It's absolutely beautiful. Give it a try. It's easy. You can use this stitch for hats, for jackets, for sweaters, for blankets, for scarves, lots and lots and lots of things. You can even use it for dishcloths and that type of thing. And if you use a thick yarn, like a super chunky, you can use this stitch and you can actually make a rug for the floor with it. You can make floor rugs with it, and that would be really beautiful, as long as you put like a non-slip surface on the back so it doesn't slip around on your bare flooring if that's what you have. So thank you very much for watching. Please give this a try. It's a beautiful little stitch. It's a beautiful stitch. It's a beautiful little blanket as well. And you can sell them. You can follow my videos, and any blankets that you make, you can sell them if you want. It's up to you. Make yourself some pocket money. You can make them and sell them if you like. So please subscribe to my channel. Just click on that subscribe button that's down there, and if you click on that bell icon, then YouTube will alert you when I put up another tutorial. So give this a little try. Until the next time, happy crafting, and I'll see you all again soon. Goodbye.